All right. I want to take a look at what Thomas Aquinas has to say about backbiting, because I think it really does apply in a strong way in this internet age where we really, I think myself included for sure, have to do a better job at not speaking badly about people. It's just become this thing that we all do, like there's hit pieces and videos where we criticize each other. And I've always been of the opinion that if someone says something publicly, they should be, if someone wants to criticize them, they should have the freedom to do so publicly. If I put something out on the internet, it's not like, well, I can't say anything because I have to address it with him first. I kind of feel like if you say something publicly, people should be able to respond to that public thing that you said. So I'm not saying we shouldn't criticize people, but I do think in the social media age, we have to be a lot more careful. And so what I want to do now is look at this article. This comes from the Secunda Secundae, question 73, Article 1, what is backbiting? So the sed contra is, it is written, if a serpent bite in silence, he is nothing better than a backbiteth. So a backbiter is going to be somebody who speaks badly of somebody behind their back. But I want to read the whole response here. He says, just as one man injures another by deeds in two ways, openly, as by robbery, or by doing him any kind of violence, and secretly, as by theft, or by a crafty blow. So again, one man injures another by words in two ways. In one way openly, and this is done by reviling him, as stated above, and in another way secretly, and this is done by backbiting. Now, from the fact that one man openly utters words against another man, he would appear to think little of him, so that for this reason he dishonors him, so that reviling is detrimental to the honor of the person reviled. So if I say something against you in public, I'm attacking your honor. I clearly seem to have little respect for you. So that's one way I could do it. On the other hand, he that speaks against another secretly seems to respect rather than slight him. It's a good point, huh? Like, I respect you enough, maybe I fear you enough not to attack you openly with my speech, so I do it behind closed doors, or I do it in secret, so that he injures directly not his honor, but his good name, insofar as by uttering such words secretly, he for his own part causes his hearers to have a bad opinion of the person against whom he speaks. For the backbiter apparently intends and aims at being believed. It is therefore evident that backbiting differs from reviling in 2 points. First, in the way in which the words are uttered, the reviler speaking openly against someone, and the backbiter secretly. Secondly, as to the end view. That is, regards the injury inflicted, the reviler injuring a man's honor, the backbiter injuring his good name. So I want to talk about this. And I want to talk about it because in part, I'm kind of a little conflicted about part of this. So it really is, I think, a cowardly thing to do, to speak badly of somebody that you interact with in daily life, instead of going to them directly. In other words, you could go to them directly, but you're choosing not to. Instead, you're choosing to speak behind their back. That would seem to be a cowardly act. And I'll be honest, if people speak poorly of others to me in secret, the one thing I learned from that interaction is I cannot trust this person. So if somebody sits down with me and they just start saying, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? And like, can you believe this? If I'm too much of a coward to kind of stop them, I at least know that I can't share anything intimate with them because I can't trust them. But I think a good response to people who backbite is to say, oh, wow, how are you going to bring this up with them? I think that's a good question. Like, you could be a little more snarky and say, oh, wow, and what did he say when you told him about this? That's being snarky because you can tell that the person hasn't brought it up. But I think saying, how are you going to bring this up to them? I think that's a great question. It takes the air out of the person who's backbiting. And I'm sure I've done this, and when that's happened to me, you feel the deflation. You're like, ugh, well, I wasn't planning on doing that. And it's like, okay, well, what does that say about you? But the other thing I'd like to say, and this is something I'm struggling with, is what's the difference between criticizing somebody and then wanting to process your thoughts with somebody before you speak to that person about them? because I speak to my wife about everything, and if I'm going to have a conversation with somebody, or if I'm going to criticize someone, or if I'm even trying to figure out, should I be offended by this, I want to process that. So one way I could do that is by not mentioning the person's name. But with my wife, I mean, we share everything. So it's like I would share the person's name. Is that backbiting? I think it can be, but isn't necessarily. Do you have any?
I do this too, but I do it a lot when I'm unsure if I'm correct to be angry about something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if I'm upset about something or upset with somebody for doing something to me, I often will go to a mutual friend and tell them what happened and say, I need you to tell me if I'm wrong, and like just call me out. Just be like, no, you're an idiot. Like, get over it.
And I like that you're bringing it to a mutual friend, because you know that this person loves and respects this other individual. And so they're not going to tolerate you speaking poorly of him. Not that you would hope not to do that anyway, but also because they're going to interpret his actions. Well,
I'm not so they wouldn't tolerate it in a if the friend we're talking about is not in the wrong, then I would hope they wouldn't tolerate it. But if they're in the wrong, I would like them to not only tolerate it, but tell me, yes, you're right to be angry about that.
Yeah.
And then do something like, how do you want to address this with them? But then often, like, you can also do that because you're trying to, like, I would be maybe like, how do I bring this to them? Okay, so you agree, like, this was not okay. How do I bring that to them?
No,
does that make sense?
Counsel. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So in that case, I don't know, right? But like if they say, no, you're wrong to be upset about it, then I'm never going to tell the person that I was upset at that I was upset about it, because what I'm going to do instead is just fix myself and move on, because they don't need to be bothered by my fault.
The cool thing too about bringing it to a trusted friend is because they know the other person in question. If they don't know who this person is, it's difficult to interpret what their intentions may have been when they said or didn't say that thing. But since they do know them, they probably have a good read on what that person meant by those things. Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and I think I can bring something up to my wife, let's say, and still hold that person with some amount of honor. And one way I try to think about this is, how would I like this person who I want to criticize, or am not sure if I need to rebuke, or if they're just bugging me, how would I like them to if they were overhearing this conversation, like, with how much honor can I address what's going on with them?
Can I add another nuance to this, I think? So like, this isn't going to bug you. So like, when you and I are slacking about something and going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And then it seems like maybe we've got it nailed down, and then you make a change.
Yeah.
And I go, Matt, like, to myself, right? My roommate overhears it and he goes, what? And I just say like, oh, I thought we had this figured out, but we didn't. So like, I just need to change it. And I was just like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not backbiting you, right? Like, my roommate is in the room and he wants to know, he is a close friend of mine and he just wants to know what's going on with me, right? So I don't feel like I've done any wrong by you, and I don't feel like you would be bothered by it.
We're going to get into a big conflict resolution here somehow. No, it's all going to come out.
No, I don't.
No, I'm only joking. No, that makes sense too. I think it's disparaging someone's character. Like, if I say of, this person, he's always doing this or he's always doing that, that's one thing. If I say, yeah, he did this and it bugged me, I don't know. I can talk about that person. I'm using my wife as an example. Y'all can use whoever you want, but I can talk about that person in a way that still maintains their dignity. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I think you have to be. Yeah, I think
everyone wants to know who you are. Have you seen this in the chat?
Everybody wants to know.
This is Thursday.
Oh,
Neil left me for a woman.
I'm Thursday.
Yeah.
And everybody's like saying,
it's the most confusing name in the world, right?
People keep saying he's wearing a red hat.
Yeah, as if you must be a Trump supporter. Is that
no, this is the logo from one of the climbing gyms in Indianapolis.
Which is a super MAGA outfit.
Yeah, because climbing gyms are notoriously very MAGA conservative.
Yeah. So this person says it's really a matter of intention. I think that's part of it. But I still think you can backbite. You can still slander somebody's good name with a good intention. Can you do that? I suppose you could do it accidentally. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let's see. I want to see some of these. See, again, this is what I love about Thomas Aquinas, right? You get a pre-packaged debate in every article. So let's have a look at one of these objections. Let's look at the third objection. I haven't read it recently, but further, to detract is to subtract or to diminish something already existing. But sometimes a man's good name is blackened even without subtracting from the truth. Right. For instance, when one reveals the crimes which a man has in truth committed. Therefore, not every...
Hold on.
What happened?
I just didn't switch to the Safari window.
Oh. Therefore, not every blackening of a good name is backbiting. All right. Here's Aquinas' response. A man is said to backbite another, not because he detracts from the truth, but because he lessens his good name. This is done sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. Directly in 4 ways. I love him so much. First, by saying that which is false about him. Secondly, by stating his sin to be greater than it is. Thirdly, by revealing something unknown about him. Fourthly, by ascribing his good deeds to a bad intention. Indirectly, this is done either by gainsaying his good or by maliciously concealing it or by diminishing it. I've said it before, Thomas Aquinas says more in a paragraph than modern theologians say in a book. There is so much there. I love that he sat down and thought that a man backbites in 4 ways. By saying that which is false about him. All right, so that would be, isn't that the distinction between slander and calumny? I always forget that. Calumny. Let's see.
Somebody in the chat just, never mind.
What, told us?
No.
Slander is to defame by telling a lie. Calumny is to defame by telling what I know to be true, with the intention of sullying someone's name. That's why in the litany of humility, you pray like these 2 words are mentioned, and people often, I think they're both mentioned, or so maybe it's calumny is mentioned, and when people don't understand it, they substitute the word slander. But if I slander someone, I'm telling a lie.
Yeah, you can think about this.
If I commit calumny, I'm saying something's true, but it's something that didn't need to be known, or that ends up sullying the person's name in some way.
You can think about this from the legal perspective. Calumny is not untrue, and truth is an absolute defense to slander.
Yeah. Saying what's false about him. Secondly, by stating his sin to be greater than it is. And we often do this, don't we? We have an excessive view of our own virtue, but when we're upset with somebody, we blow their sin out of proportion, or we think, how could they? Forgetting what a wretch we are. Thirdly, by revealing something unknown about him, right, that you don't have a right to reveal. Fourthly, by ascribing his good deeds to a bad intention. Yeah, there's a lot. See, I think the reason I think this is worth bringing up is I just feel like we need to be reminded about this as Catholics, that these are grave sins. In fact, in the very next article, in Article 2, Aquinas, here's the sed contra, and just so you know, the sed contra, whenever he does this before his main response, he's drawing from some, usually church authority, and so this is his official position, and then he elucidates it in his own words. So he says, it's written in Romans 1:30, backbiters hateful to God, which epithet according to a gloss is inserted, lest it be deemed a slight sin because it consists in words. So he's going to say it's a grave sin. Therefore, he says, properly speaking, therefore backbiting, properly speaking, is a mortal sin. Now, he gives conditions to this, obviously. He says, nevertheless, it happens sometimes that a man utters words whereby someone's good name is tarnished, and yet he does not intend this. So obviously there's all these extenuating circumstances. But yeah, it's really important. I think that in a sexualized culture such as ours, we tend to think and feel badly only of sexual sin. I imagine if you were to speak to a priest and you'd be like, what sins do people not confess? You know, he'd probably like, I haven't heard someone confess backbiting. Maybe he would, but that's probably, or like coveting my neighbor's goods, or envy, or my own pride, or self-hatred. Like there's all these sins that we probably are not even cognizant of because, hey, we haven't masturbated, so we're doing great. Hey, thanks for watching that clip. Would you like this beautiful, very high quality, definitely not made in China, not that there's anything wrong with that, Pints with Aquinas beer stein for free, sent to your door? Would you also like a copy of The Jill sent to your door 4 times a year? This is the Pints with Aquinas newspaper, by the way. If you do, go to mattfradd.locals.com and become an annual supporter for any amount. We'll send you that stuff for free, and you get a bunch of other free things in return. You'll get more information by going over to mattfradd.locals.com. Thanks.